Did we focus too much on the negative when it came to the Jrue Holiday trade? Were we not happy enough? We're going to re-examine the trade with Chuck McKenney, my old blogging partner, right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I'm here for you every Monday through Friday with a free, fresh podcast drop directly to your device if you're a subscriber. So make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcast, whichever app you're using. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you in the comment section of the YouTube page. Subscribe there. Let me know what you're thinking about this topic, anything about the Celtics. Hop on in there and let me know what you think. I'm John Karalis. Used to play a long, long time ago. Now I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. Today, I brought on my old blogging partner, Chuck McKenney from RedsArmy.com, which no longer exists, but it's what kind of launched me. And Chuck was a huge, huge part of that. Chuck hit me up on Twitter and said, why are you being so down? Why are you focusing so much on the negative of the Jrue Holiday trade? I said, all right, well, maybe I did. Hey, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. After practice, which was fun, Paul Pierce talked, read my story on Boston Sports Journal. Pierce is there to carry on a tradition that was super cool to see. Things seem to be going great. Everybody's excited after the first few days. I'll talk more about that next week. And the Celtics start training camp start their preseason schedule on Sunday. So that'll be the Monday podcast. But I wanted to get Chuck on to see. Let's do a little self-examination. Were we a little too negative about the downside of the Jrue Holiday podcast, or what? Let's just dive into the conversation with Chuck. All right. So as we know on the Locked On Celtics podcast, anytime anybody objects to something I've said on Twitter, we immediately have that person on the podcast. And so Chuck McKenney, longtime friend, one-time coworker, and person who helped me launch this career, really, has objected to our take on the Jrue Holiday trade. So first of all, Chuck, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. I mean, it would be nice if I didn't have to throw an online tantrum to be invited back on the podcast. So
that's the only way to get my attention nowadays.
But I know what behavior is required to be a guest on your big time show. I know.
This is like a dog being rewarded for peeing inside the house. It's just right. It's not going to end well for me. So Chuck is, for people who don't know, was co-founder of RedsArmy.com with me. So you are officially a retired blogger, and now doting dad chasing your son around as he dominates these tournaments and basketball and baseball. How does it feel to have someone already surpassing you as an athlete in his teenage years?
Yeah, I mean, it's been this way for a couple of years now, so I don't know where it comes from. He works hard. It's not not something I passed down, that's for sure. So, it's great to see him do things that, I never could. So, you always root for your kids, no matter how,
that's
no matter
right.
what they're doing or what levels that they achieve. So I'm loving it.
All right. So Chuck, here you are. You've been given the spotlight. You've been given the platform. Apparently you think that we're not celebrating this move enough. Please, the platform is yours. Air your grievances.
It was just, my feelings in one moment in time. Right. So, when something major happens with the Celtics, I'm on Twitter like the rest of us, and I'm on, I'm listening to your podcast. I want to get your take. I turn to you for, for a, not just to be completely entertained, but for reasonable, responsible,
exactly,
fence straddling opinion and analysis. So that's what I walk into. And I think most of your followers do that when they, click the play button on your podcast. And I didn't feel like that's what I got. It's not what I expected. So I think my response was like, whoa, I felt, and again, we all are, I think a big part of this is we're all still processing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was another major trade. I think just many of us were still kind of processing the smart for Porzingis and kind of wrapping our head around that. And then to have this happen, it was still kind of like, ground moving or earth shattering, whatever you want to call it. So trying to process it. And I do feel like the initial reaction was this is a good move for the team, right? This is a really good move for the team. But to me, it just felt like that quickly shifted from this is a good move for the team to, and this is all the bad stuff that now we have to deal with, right? That suddenly the depth became a major concern, and this team is unaffordable. The window is now, right? And I guess I wanted to kick back and just enjoy this signing a little bit more before we started to dig into everything that negative that this has brought about. And I think you caught all of my – I caught it from a few – there was a little bit from Brian Robb and a couple other Celtics people on Twitter. So I just kind of was soaking it all in, and then it all just spit it back onto you. You
as usual, you take all your frustrations out on me, and I have to deal with your crap.
Yes.
So what you wanted was you wanted to eat your Big Mac and fries and have your milkshake and not have anybody tell you that this is bad for you in this moment is basically what you wanted.
Yeah. Yes.
This
Analogy Man makes an early appearance.
But isn't that what the Celtics did? They're taking us to McDonald's. It's get whatever you want. Do you want a stretch 5 Big Man? Yeah, let's go get a Porzingis. Doesn't matter what it costs. You want a Jrue Holiday? Let's go get a Jrue Holiday. Doesn't matter. Let's worry about the calories later. We're starting a new workout plan next week. It's gonna be fine. Look, it is fair. It is fair to say in the early stages of this, I think a lot of fans were saying like, "Oh my God, we got Holiday and this is so great." And I think it might have gone to like another overreaction. It's like Milwaukee gets Damian Lillard and is an incredible reaction there. Like, oh, Milwaukee, they're far and away the favorites now. And the Celtics get Holiday. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Now the Celtics are far and away the favorite. People just want to be so just in your face about it. Like you bust my balls here about fence straddling, but people don't want to be seen as seeing both sides. It's you just got to come out hard with these analyses, got to hard with this opinion, be like, this is the best signing ever. Scalabrini on TV, this is the best 1 through 6 in the league, and it's not even a question. And it might be. I don't know if it's not even a question, but I do understand the desire to just kick back and just enjoy the fact that, hey, one team did something, Boston actually answered that team. And so to be fair, that is something that should be celebrated. Brad Stevens has, that the guts, let's say, to go out there and say, you know what? Milwaukee made this huge earth-shattering move. We have to answer it. He went and he answered it. And that's a big deal in Boston, where I think over the past few years, maybe at the end of the Danny Ainge era, Danny was so obsessed with just dominating every trade that he might not have pulled the trigger, because this isn't a slam dunk win for the Celtics. It's a win where you paid a price. I don't know that Danny Ainge would have done the deal. Brad Stevens did, and that's something to be celebrated. Let's continue the conversation in just a second. First, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Hey, basketball is back too. You got football, you got basketball, plenty to bet on. And right now, new customers, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, whether that bet you place wins or loses. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, this is the time. There's no better time to get into the action. The app is very easy to use. It's super safe, super secure. When you win, the money is right away deposited into your account. You can get it as soon as you win. And you can bet on anything, to spreads, player props, over-unders, whatever you're looking for, futures. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on. Super important that you do that. FanDuel.com/locked-on. Kick off the NFL season, tip off the NBA season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. We'll just ask you, if you're going to do it, please gamble responsibly. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Again, subscribe here. We're going to go 5 days a week, plus bonus podcasts Friday night, Saturday night, if there's a game. So get that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're subscribed on whatever platform you use, also on YouTube. Now let's continue the conversation with Chuck McKenney.
We're conditioned to kind of be, there's always been this long-term plan in place for the Celtics. I feel like their rebuild since 2013, 2014 has been very methodical. I mean, there's been different levels of it, right? Obviously, when they, signed Hayward and traded for Kyrie, and then that fell apart, and then they started to kind of rebuild since then, or reload, however you want to call it. But there's always kind of been this sort of methodical process. Like, we have our core pieces, we're building slowly, we're young, we're gaining experience, we're taking these incremental steps to pursuing a championship. And the team has kind of responded. They've incrementally gotten better. But there are plenty of teams who are much more impulsive, right? Whether it's Toronto trading for Kawhi, or LeBron going to the Lakers and them going all in for Anthony Davis. We're seeing now we're even going back to when Durant went to Golden State, these sort of one or two moves that really sort of propel you into that new stratosphere. And that, it might not be the long-term plan, but they're going all in the moment. And I really feel like this is the Celtics going all in the moment. Yeah. And I don't know if it's Wick losing some patience. But I think that's a shift we're seeing with this team, and that may be why suddenly the fans are a little, shocked by it. And then also, now we can look and say, hey, there is a downside to all these moves that they're making. So I respect your opinion. I appreciate the perspective, right?
Dude, let me write this down. October 5th, 2023. Chuck respects my opinion.
But I think that what they're doing isn't anything that many other teams, there are plenty of teams that have won the championships that do all the time, right? And, I just don't feel like it's necessarily going to be some type of death knell or whatever you call, whatever the phrase is, in a couple of years with them.
I think a lot of the discussion about this second apron and the collective bargaining agreement, it just lives in my head, and I know where the Celtics are going to be. This is not the normal. This is not what we're used to when it comes to team building. This under normal circumstances, under the old collective bargaining agreement, I never would have even talked about how untenable this is in the long term financially, because what I would have said is, as long as Wick Grousbeck and the ownership group want to pay the tax and are willing to pay the tax, then the Celtics can just keep going with this. It's going to be expensive, but they've shown that when they know this is a contender, they are willing to pay the tax. And that would have been the end of it. But I just know that second apron is just, it is, the sword of Damocles is just hanging over your head, and every move that you make could be the thing that, ends this particular run. It's hard to operate in above that second apron after this season. And so I maybe in the initial analysis, you just want to get the, okay, this is how he fits and this is what he does and all of that stuff. But to me, the long-term part of it is, I think, valid. And not just because we know it. I think guys on the team know this. Everybody in that locker room is going to be looking around and be like, we know the Celtics have had guys who helped negotiate this contract in that locker room. They know that what the situation is. They know that there's no way that Tatum and Brown and Porzingis and Holiday are here longer than 2 seasons. And hey, those are going to be 2 magical seasons, but also the pressure is on. This is a 2-year window at best, and this year's their best chance. So I feel like when that is part of the overall analysis, but that's even too long-term. The bigger issue is 1 through 6, they're great. And then after that is what, and I think I bring that up to say the Celtics just aren't done. They have to make some other moves. And part of this preseason and part of November and December is going to be, what can you get away with over the course of the regular season, and what needs addressing? Can you get away with Peyton Pritchard as your backup point guard? Can you get away with Luke Cornett as your third big? If you can get away with Cornett and Wenyen Gabriel and those guys, then you just deal with that and you shorten your rotation and you go get a point guard. If you can deal with the ball handling and the bigs aren't, then you go find a big and you make a trade. And it's just kind of like setting the expectation. Be aware that the Celtics do have to make another move. This roster is still somewhat incomplete, and it's just a matter of waiting to figure out what the most pressing need is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think just my final thoughts, kind of like on this, just the perception of this team. Like, I see like where they are now as to kind of where they were even before they traded Smart for Porzingis, right? I mean, I see them having a much higher ceiling, right? Like this 1 through 6, clearly they put all their chips in the 1 through 6. So
it's a very high ceiling.
It's much higher with this group. But you pull one little block out of this sort of Jenga tower due to injury, and then boom, our floor is much lower than what we had last year. So
that's right.
And I think we're still, and that goes back to my sort of, we've always been methodical with building our team and having depth, or used to having depth, that it's just different to acknowledge and understand. But I think, in the NBA, talent wins. I mean, guys don't always mesh, but when you roll out guys like this, I mean, this is the whole super team logic. Not that they're technically a super team, but I mean, they have some horses now. So I'm thinking, and as I start to think about that, I'm feeling better about this team's chances at winning a title than I did prior to July 1st or whatever. Because these depth pieces, as we know, can be added, aren't always they're not always game changers. They certainly help, and they're needed. But we've been to enough playoff runs where Joe's only playing 8 guys. So, but I'm with you. There's just a lot of pieces to it in order to keep Tatum and Brown's minutes down in the regular season. You need guys that you can play. We still want to win games. We still want to go for top 2-3 seed. So all that stuff kind of comes together, and you need depth for that. You want to limit Al's minutes. There's a lot there. But I just feel like, wow, I think this is just the ceiling on this team is just where it's never been before, at least in the last 15 years. And that's kind of what I'm choosing to focus on. And you know me, I'm just the eternal optimist, John. I've always been that way. I see some of these guys. That's the way I'm choosing.
I've just always thought of you as just a ray of sunshine, like Chuck Sunshine McKenney is your nickname. I do think that it's possible that, okay, these aren't the sexiest names in the world, right? O'Shea Brissett, Lamar Stevens, and, you get Sam Hauser, you got guys that you're looking at and you're saying, okay, they have specific skills, but it's entirely possible that the fit is there. What the problem is, we just don't know, right? We don't know what they're going to be. And that's why a preseason game on Sunday is actually kind of cool. We get to see a little bit of what they might be. I keep talking about they probably need these other guys, and I still think they need at least one more player, but Brissett can absolutely step up. Stevens can absolutely step up. Sam Hauser can absolutely step up. Those guys are all guys with different skills, but the size is there. And next to not just Tatum and Brown, now you got next to Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, and Jrue Holiday, guys that all demand attention. Whatever combination of those guys is on the floor with whatever bench guys there are, that's gonna be meaningful. And also, either Al Horford, Derek White, or Jrue Holiday, one of those three guys is coming off the bench, because last I checked, you can't start 6 guys. So it's obvious one of those guys is coming off the bench. And even though we talk about needing 8, 9, 10 guys for a rotation, you still have, it's not like the entire starting lineup goes to the bench. We see all bench lineups so infrequently that when they come in, it's like, oh, wow, all bench lineup. Let's make a note of that. So Brissett and all of these guys that are on the roster right now are going to still be playing off of one of Tatum or Brown, one of Horford and Porzingis, one of Derek White and Jrue Holiday. 3 of those guys are probably going to be on the floor while the other 3 are on the bench, and you can intermingle those. So 3 very good players on the floor with 2 bench players. Those 2 bench players are going to be better than they would be just on their own or on a worse team. And so there, as much as I've been saying the Celtics need to add stuff, I probably have not been saying enough that the Celtics do have internally on their roster guys that probably or have the capacity to fit very well. And maybe there's less of a need to scan the league than we think. And it's maybe just one guy that can come in and shore up point guard, front court, or something like that. And the rest of these guys actually, because of the way these combinations are going to work, are actually going to be fine. All right, we're going to wrap this up in just a second. First, today's show is brought to you by Birddogs. Birddogs got stretch khaki shorts designed to fit slimmer through the thigh. That gives you a nice sculpted look. They've invented this new cloud knit fabric. It looks just like khaki shorts, but it's not khaki shorts. It's not that stiff, restricting cotton. These are super comfortable, super flattering, and versatile. You can wear them wherever. You can go swimming. You can go golfing. You can do whatever activity. You can keep them on as you get ready for the next thing you're going to do. It fits way better than regular shorts. And they're basically, if you think about what Lululemon does, but they fit way better, and they use anti-stink sweat wicking fabric. It keeps you cool. It keeps you dry all day long. So wear them all day. You can do multiple things in them. They look good. They feel good. It's very simple. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. Birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. Enter the promo code LockedOnNBA at checkout. You get a free Bird Dogs water bottle when you order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. Free water bottle at checkout. How can you lose? You get awesome shorts, versatile shorts, casual, dressy. You can wear them at a family reunion. You can wear them at wherever. You can wear them at a nice business casual kind of meeting that allows those kind of shorts. It's just a very versatile kind of short. Birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA, or enter the promo code LockedOnNBA at checkout. You'll get a free water bottle with your order. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you that. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Check out the Locked On NBA podcast I host on Wednesdays with Jake Madison of the Locked On Pelicans podcast. We're all covering the league Monday through Friday, rotating hosts in a fun way, an informative way, an interesting way. So check out the Locked On NBA podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Now let's continue the conversation with Chuck McKenney.
You've mentioned point guard a couple of times now, but just to go along with what you're saying, clearly they'll stagger White and Holiday. So one comes out, then the other becomes the point guard, right? We're comfortable with the two of them manning point guard for this team.
Yeah.
Right? That's accurate?
Yeah, I'm fine with either of those guys handling the ball.
So technically, then Pritchard is our third point guard.
Yes.
Right? If they stagger them. So I'm just not overly, and I have a lot of confidence in Pritchard. I love his game. I want to give him more opportunity. So let's I'm completely comfortable with him as our third point guard, as being a rotation player. I think, my biggest concern now is I feel like we're really pushing the limits with Al. I mean, at some point, you're just your body doesn't respond. He's super healthy. Like Al is the consummate pro. We know what he gives. He's fantastic. He's going to be ready and in shape. But at some point, your body it just doesn't respond.
That's right.
And I'm worried. After what we got out of him last year, we continue to go back to that well. It's like, oh man,
yeah,
he's still vital. Like we need him to defend certain guys in this league who are superstars. And I'm a little concerned that we're going to go to him this year, and it's like, oh shit, Al. You can see Al lost a little bit. He's not, I don't know. I mean, don't you think that's like?
I think that's probably more of the concern. If I get a point, the two biggest concerns to me right now are Peyton Pritchard's size and Al Horford's age. And that's why I'm trying to figure out which of those two things you can get away with in the regular season. And I think it's probably going to be Pritchard's. Like, you could probably get away with starting. My initial thought is you start White and Holiday together. You start the Jays and Porzingis. You keep Al Horford on the bench, partly to keep his minutes down, but also partly because that gives you floor spacing at the 5 for all 48 minutes. If you basically keep Porzingis and Al Horford for the most part subbing in for one another, then you've got a guy that can stretch the floor at the 5 the entire game. That's not to say you never play them together. You obviously have a lot of opportunity to play them together. But for now, my kind of like most basic thought is you keep shooting at the 5 for the whole game. You start White and Holiday together. At the 6-minute mark, you sub one of those guys out. Okay. And then at the 2-minute mark or so, at that TV timeout or just after that, then they start subbing in for one another the rest of the way until the end of the half and the end of the fourth quarter. And that minimizes how often, like, Peyton Pritchard's going to get his minutes for sure in that scenario, but he's still not going to get, it's not like he's getting 25, 30 minutes a game. He's probably going to get 12 to 15. You have Jayson Tatum, who's handled the ball. You have Jaylen Brown, who's handled the ball. And so you can have other guys initiate the offense in that scenario. So I think for the regular season, it's most likely that you would go searching for another big to help out. But again, they just signed Gabriel. He could be that other big. They have Luke Cornett, who they like. He could play minutes. So maybe they don't. Maybe they have those guys. But if they do go get a guy, like I think they might, it's probably going to be a big.
Well, so they had a guy who was a swing, who could play some center, who could guard some heavy dudes, who could shoot a little bit. I was a big Grant Williams guy. I liked Grant. I know he was up and down. He did a lot of things that rubbed people the wrong way. Nonstop talking with officials. Maybe overstepped his sort of vocal. His position in the vocal hierarchy of the team. So there were a lot of things that I wasn't too keen on, but I thought him on the floor, just the way he could body up some bigs, spread the floor, make shots. I feel like he's that type of guy. And now that he's gone, right? So when Grant left, I think we were all like, 17 million or whatever it was. We thought it was too much. I think we were kind of bracing for that. But now seeing where they are, I feel like he's the guy they'd be looking for. But this just brings me back to like a larger point of Missoula wasn't playing him anyway. Part of this sort of like purge is this, from Smart to Grant to, not maybe I know Brogdon. I think there were a lot of issues there with Brogdon. Was this sort of like they were clearing some personalities and some people that Missoula didn't think too highly of to play, had personalities that were clashing with what they were trying to do, or, it just felt like they got rid of, because I thought they were going to tinker on the margins with this rotation and kind of clear some space, but I didn't think that they would ship out so many guys. I don't know if you think that's sort of like that's part of this.
Right. Well, I don't want to get too caught up in the guys that ended up getting shipped out, because the initial plan was Brogdon to the Clippers for Porzingis, and that would have kept Marcus Smart here. The initial plan was to keep Marcus Smart. So would they have gone for Jrue Holiday if they had Marcus Smart? And then, so if they had Smart, like if, let's say the Clippers take the initial deal with Brogdon. So now the Celtics have Porzingis, and they still let Grant Williams go because of money. And they, at that point, you don't know that Jrue Holiday is coming around, right? Yeah. So that's the big thing. You don't know that there's a Holiday potential trade. It's not like the Damian Lillard situation where everybody knew he was going to get traded, right? And so Holiday was just not even a thought. No one even believed for a second, especially not Jrue Holiday and his wife, that they were going to be moved. So Brogdon is gone in this scenario. Smart is still on the roster. Now everything happens exactly the same way. Does Boston move Smart and Robert Williams? Smart makes less than Brogdon. So maybe the deal is different. Maybe they don't let Grant go because of the money. I still think they do in this scenario. It's hard to kind of like extrapolate out how it would go. If you still had Marcus and Jrue Holiday became available, and it was like, well, you got Marcus who makes like $4 million less. So it would have been Marcus, Rob, and Peyton Pritchard. Would that have been too much for Boston to give up? Maybe you just keep Marcus Smart and you say, hey, look, we've already got our defender for Damian Lillard. We're just going to keep that. We're going to keep our big lineup. Maybe they just keep that and you just go with Porzingis as the newest guy and everything else stays. So I don't know. I don't know if Holiday's on this team, if the Clippers make a different decision earlier in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I see Jrue as an obvious upgrade over Smart, but you're right. It's not like a 1-for-1.
It's not. It's not a straight swap. Yeah. Look, I get it. I get it. Yes. Yeah. But Smart is younger, but I get the shooting and the deep and all that stuff for sure.
Yeah, it's just and like you said, I think it's pretty clear that what they were doing in with July, like they didn't know what was going to happen. This wasn't the grand plan wasn't to move all these pieces, right? Because there were so many moving parts. But I just want to also ask you about Rob. Like Brad had there's a comment from him right a week before the trade. There were some stories about they were excited for him and he was coming into his 6th season. His level of something about his level of experience, and I thought Rob's been around for 5 years already. I almost didn't believe it. He always felt like he was like that second-year player going into his 3rd year. I go to
because he's played in as many games as a second-year guy would by now.
I look at his stats and I'm like, holy shit, he's going into his 6th season. He's 25. And injuries aside, is there something with Rob where they were like, we think this is what he is? Which at times he's a fantastic player, right?
Yeah.
But he's going to be limited, and this is his game. Even though we got super excited with him taking 17-footers in summer workouts and stuff, he was still going to have this particular skill set. And again, I think it goes back to that higher ceiling and floor type thing I was talking about earlier. Maybe they just thought Rob was here and they could afford to move on from him.
I'm sure that's part of the rationale. I mean, like I've been saying on the show, they took Marcus Smart and turn him into Jrue Holiday, basically. And now you've got more shooting at that position. They took Robert Williams and turned him into Kristaps Porzingis, essentially, and you get shooting at that position. And the bottom line is, Joe Mazzulla values shooting, and it's not. I don't think he's like this notion that he is so obsessed with the 3-pointer that that's all he wants. I think it's a little overstated at this point, but he understands like the math in the NBA, and the math is you got to generate a lot of good 3-pointers. You got to make sure you're taking the right shots inside the 3-point line, and not put yourself in a position to be in a disadvantage. So they easily could have gotten by with Robert Williams, and he makes an impact in a lot of different ways. I think because of the things that he doesn't do, it did contribute to, hey, this is a tough decision, but okay, we're willing to make this tough decision because this team that's now constructed has shooting all over the place. And that's just much more of what it just fits much more of what Joe Mazzulla wants to do. So I don't think it's so much as they looked at Rob the way you put it, because it makes it seem like they were saying, hey, if we can get something good for Rob, we're going to go get it. I think they were presented a scenario where Holiday became available. Like as Brad Stevens put it, you're scanning the league. You're just kind of keeping an eye on, okay, where might Dame go? And if he goes somewhere, who might shake free? And as the Milwaukee stuff kind of started to materialize quickly, you start to realize, hey, they're going to have to give up Holiday if that's the case. All right, if we wanted to get Holiday, who might we need to give up? And there were 3 packages for Boston. One was Brogdon and, player bouillabaisse were like 6 different guys in there, and it was just whatever. And then there's Brogdon with Al Horford +1. And then you say, okay, we're keeping Rob. You're giving up shooting, plus you're giving up 3 players for 1. And then you go to the other one. It's like Brogdon and Rob, and then you give up your picks. And they probably said, and Portland obviously has a say in this too, right? Portland has a say, like, we don't want Al Horford and Peyton Pritchard. Like, sure, we'll take Peyton Pritchard because it's Portland. But what we really want is a young player that, like, we want to take a flyer on this young guy and see, can he stay healthy? Let's see what he's got. So they could have a little bit more patience with him. And I think Boston was just like, it's a steep price to pay. But I think Brad was being honest. They love Holiday so much that they're willing to pay that price. It's whatever you want, and different people value something different. But like, if you wanted a piece of sports memorabilia, if you wanted an autographed photo of Bill Russell, and you say, well, it's a steep price to pay this, I don't know, 1,000, whatever, how many thousand, but I want that. And I value that. Maybe the person next to you doesn't value it that much, but you do. And so you pay the steep price because you got to have it. And I think that's where Brad Stevens was.
I would say, yeah. I mean, I think listening to you pre-trade, you thought this was a long shot. I think most of us thought it was a long shot, especially a package involving Rob. I think we underestimated how much Brad loves Holiday, and we kind of gravitated towards that, player stew option, right? Where it was all these guys, because we thought that it's just surprising. Like you never know.
It's
and
surprising.
I think that added to that. Like, we heard the Celtics name come up in these, where everyone was like, this can't be true. Like, someone's using the Celtics as leverage in another deal, because it just doesn't make sense that they're gonna that they would trade Rob or something to make it work. It didn't seem. And now, just seeing the way they gush over Holiday, it's clear that they always wanted him, and they were willing to pony up for him. So
that's the bottom line. Look, it fits. The one thing you can say about this team now is the coach, the players, the style, the mentality. They've Brad has committed to Joe Mazzulla, and he's committed to a roster to him that fits and is versatile enough that you can do different things. Mazzulla keeps talking about curveballs. You can put lineups out there that are curveball lineups for other teams. You can put these guys in positions to play a zone, to play different kind of things that are curveballs. So if nothing else, they've paid a lot, but they've created a roster that fits what their coach is trying to do. And now that means from the bottom to the top, this is a franchise that is on the same page. And it's the one thing that I said at the beginning of the preseason. This is a team that needs to get on the same page, and this is how they did it. It's not how I thought they were going to do it, but this is how they did it. So now it's a matter of, does this page, is this page part of a championship novel? That's the question. So Chuck, appreciate you coming on.
Anytime, very therapeutic. It's always therapeutic for me to talk these things out. Proving you wrong doesn't always make me feel good. But
funny that you have that perspective, because I feel like, calming you down from your knee-jerk hothead reaction, it finally gets us to a place where you understand fully and agree fully with my assessment of this trade.
You've been talking me off ledges or calming me down for 20 years, so you're an
decades. I mean, I'm like a hostage negotiator, just crisis counselor Karalis over here with Chuck.
Chuck, I can't wait to be back on at the All-Star break when they're on pace for 64 wins and they're the consensus #1 team in the East.
All right. Let's mark that down.
Okay.
Let me know what you think. I feel like we came to a nice little spot there. We're comfortable. We're good. I think we're all happy for the Celtics. Everybody on the Celtics, let me tell you something. Everybody in that Celtics organization is thrilled to have Jrue Holiday. This is just such a slam dunk move. It's amazing. I have not seen an organization this happy to get a player. It's ridiculous. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. And Sunday is going to be the first chance. This is the Friday podcast. There's a Saturday practice, no podcast after a practice. Sunday, there's a game. I'll have a post-game podcast, hopefully from the Garden, and I'll give you the analysis of what happened. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. You can watch the show on YouTube. Get there into the comment section. If you're an everydayer, if you're here with me Monday through Friday, if you love the show that much and you want to make sure that people are enjoying it the way you do, spread the word. Tell your friends. Tell everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.